Yeah, I'm going to look at the side here. Dallas, I believe, is -1.5 just before I came on air. So let's go with that point spread. And Oklahoma City, losing the last two games in the series to fall behind 2-1. Here's the thing with OKC. I know that Steve discussed, and Teddy brought a further point up, is how much weight do you carry from results in the regular season, whether it be ATS results or totals results, and take it into the playoffs. Well, here's the thing. Oklahoma City this year has only lost 3 in a row one time all season long. They're 7-1 straight up this year off back-to-back losses. So, yeah, I mean, you could say, well, that most of that's during the regular season. This is the first time they've lost 2 in a row all year. But to me, that really signifies consistency to me and a very resilient team. So I have to weigh that in heavily. And not only 7-1 straight up this year off back-to-back losses, but if they were facing a Western Conference opponent, 4-0 in those situations. And again, OKC has not played really good defense. Not bad in the last game. I mean, he only gave up 105, but not very good in game 2. But keep in mind, this is still a Thunder team that's allowing 96.7 points per game during the postseason and holding teams to 41% shooting. And it's not like Dallas has shot the lights out in the first 3 games of the series, only shooting 43%. Here's what's killing OKC in the last 2 games is their three-point shooting efficiency. They're just 20 for 60, which is 33.3%. But in game 1, they were 16 out of 35. They're 38% on the season. And Dallas's three-point defense during the postseason is 37.5. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that OKC is going to be more in the range of between 37 to 40% tonight from the three-point line. That's going to make a world of difference. And also, Dallas, the one thing that really sticks out to me, Teddy, is in the first 3 games of this series, they've been very fortunate to be up 2-1, considering they're 50 for 74 from the free throw line. That's 67.6%. That's not even good at the college level. That's horrible by NBA standards. And in a game like this, which I think is going to be an extremely close game throughout, that may be the telling difference. And I think too many times when we handicap the NBA, or even college basketball for that matter, we lose sight of free throws. How many attempts, how many times a team gets to the free throw line, how many times a team allows free throws per game, and also free throw percentage. And again, if OKC happens to have to extend the game because they're down a couple points late in the game, you have to factor that in as well. As Dallas is not converting at the free throw line. And by the way, since 2013, NBA number 1 seeds down 2-1 in a series, and they're facing an opponent that is a seed of 4 or greater, like Dallas, 5-1 straight up. Not a lot of situations like that with the number 1 seeds. The 6 times it happened, the number 1 seed came back and won game 4, 5 of those 6 occasions. So I'm going to go with OKC plus 1.5, Teddy.
So I was going back and looking at those regular season when they lost 2 in a row, who they actually beat in the 3rd game. I got Utah, they beat one time. They beat Washington one time. They had a win over Charlotte one time. They had a win over Atlanta. There was a couple of wins against quality teams, but the majority of those wins after back-to-back losses, came against bottom feeders. But I want to ask you the same question I asked Steve. You alluded to it. It's the middle of May. The regular season ended a month ago. The meetings between these two teams and and the meaningful regular season probably ended in March, for most of these teams. How much do we factor in regular season results, regular season situations, off back-to-back losses, what we saw in the regular season? Is that still relevant against elite competition many, many, many weeks after the regular season is over?
It's a great question, Teddy. And it doesn't surprise me that you would ask that. And I'll say the same, along the same lines as Steve. Sometimes there's an overreaction, especially when we see totals during the postseason, right? And Steve brought up a perfect example with the average total has been in the 4 regular season matchups as opposed to what we've seen in the playoffs. And really, if you look at the other series, they align perfectly with that statement. So in terms of who they beat from a quality standpoint, I would put more emphasis not only on who they beat, but what was the margin of victory. I mean, are they beating the Atlantas and the Charlottes in the lower cast of NBA teams? Are they barely getting by in those situations, or are they coming up with a strong effort? Because reminding you again, they're plus 1.5 in this game, and in all the games you mentioned, they were heavy favorites. So I think there's a discernible difference when you make that comparison, albeit it is a good point. So as far as regular season goes, in comparing it to the playoffs, it's the same thing to me. I guess it might be a bad analogy, Teddy, but the best I can answer it is when you look at a team's statistics for the entire season, the one team in the NBA is averaging 121 points per game, Indiana, for example, but yet you're seeing their totals in the playoffs sort of down. I look at how they've been doing since the postseason began, now that we're in the second round, and how they finished the season, because sometimes overall season statistics could be extremely deceiving because a team is not comparable in terms of what they're doing from a data standpoint or a statistics standpoint over the last 10 to 15 games, for example. So that's the best way I can answer that. But that's a loaded question and a good one, Teddy.